Grant Whitmore had evicted hundreds of families in his life, but it wasn't until two little girls barely waist-high opened the door in silence that he realized he might never sign another eviction notice again. Grant wasn't the sentimental type. At 60, he'd built an empire from concrete and contracts. 30 apartment complexes, a real estate firm that spanned the state, and a legal team that ran like a machine. He didn't deal in feelings, only deadlines, profit margins, and property lines. When a tenant fell behind, the solution was simple: serve the notice, start the clock, move on. But that morning, one file stopped him. Unit 6B, 3 months delinquent, no contact, no response. A handwritten note on the corner caught his eye. Might need a personal visit. Grant hated those words. Special case. Exception. They made things messy. Still something, maybe the silence of the early hour, or maybe just a flicker of something he didn't care to name, made him reach for his coat, grab his keys, and head out in his Range Rover. The neighborhood was one of his early investments. Forgotten. Low-income housing in a crumbling corner of the city. Faded walls, cracked pavement, rusted stair rails. The kind of place his company was supposed to renovate 10 years ago, but never quite got around to. He walked up the narrow steps and rang the bell. No answer. He rang again. Footsteps light, careful. Then the door opened. Two little girls stood there. One looked about 6, the other maybe 4. Both wore matching pale blue dresses, their hair tied back unevenly. Their faces were serious eyes, too wide, too old for their age. There was no adult behind them, no sound inside. Just silence. Heavy and still. The older one looked up at him. "Are you Mr. Whitmore?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded, uncertain. The younger girl stepped forward without a word and held out a wrinkled envelope. The paper was worn like it had been held too long. On the front, in shaky handwriting, were 5 words that knocked the air out of him. Grant Whitmore, if you still care. His name, written by someone who knew him, too well. The older girl bit her lip. Mom said, if something happened, we should find you. Grant didn't speak. He took the envelope slowly, his mind suddenly buzzing with names he hadn't thought of in years. Nina Alvarez had hit him like a cold wind. A name from a lifetime ago. A memory wrapped in warmth, buried beneath layers of business meetings and bank accounts. He hadn't heard, it hadn't let himself feel it in over a decade. And now somehow her children, or were they were standing in front of him, alone. Grant Whitmore had never stepped inside a tenant's apartment out of emotion. But that morning, something pulled him in. Maybe it was the fear in the girl's eyes, maybe it was the silence, or maybe it was that envelope, with his name written in handwriting he hadn't seen in over 10 years. The apartment was dim, cold, too quiet, no light, no noise, no smell of food, just 2 mattresses on the floor, a few empty cereal boxes, and a note on the fridge that read, "If Mommy's not back, heat up dinner with the green button." He stood there holding the eviction notice he'd brought, folded it in half, then again, and again, until it was a small, wrinkled square in his hand. Then slowly, quietly, he tore it into pieces. Emma, the older one, watched him from the doorway, like she was trying to decide whether or not he could be trusted. Chloe sat on the floor, clutching a one-eared teddy bear. Her lips were chapped. Her hair hadn't been brushed in days. "Have you two eaten anything?" Grant asked. His voice cracked more than he liked. Emma didn't answer. She just glanced toward Chloe and gently shook her head. He didn't wait for more. Grant walked out and found a diner 2 blocks down somewhere he hadn't stepped foot in since the 90s. He came back with a warm paper bag and the smell of grilled cheese and tomato soup. They devoured it like they hadn't seen a real meal in days. That night, Grant didn't go back to his penthouse. He stayed, sat on a creaky wooden chair near the window while the girls curled up together on their makeshift beds. As they drifted off, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Josh," he said, "I need you to find someone for me. Her name's Nina Alvarez. Used to live in one of my properties around 2012. She vanished. Start with tenant records, work backward from there. Then quieter. Keep it off the books." He didn't sleep. He just stood at the window looking out over a neighborhood time had forgotten, wondering what the hell he was doing. 3 days later, Grant brought the girls to his house. Not an apartment, not a shelter, his house. Emma clutched her backpack the entire ride. Chloe fell asleep holding his coat. When his housekeeper opened the front door and saw them, her jaw dropped. Grant didn't flinch. "Clear out the guest wing," he said. "We have kids now." Everything felt unfamiliar. Sticky fingers on glass tables. Crumbs on designer chairs. Crayons rolled under the couch. He hadn't known the sound of children's laughter could echo off marble floors like that. But he didn't hate it. Emma was quiet, but always watching. Chloe would say the most heartbreaking things like, "Mommy used to sing that song. Mommy said you were nice once. Mommy said when I grow up I'll be a lawyer so nobody can ever make us leave again." That last one hit him in the chest. Grant didn't reply. He just adjusted his cufflink and turned away. A week passed, still no sign of Nina. No bank activity, no phone, no ID. The more the silence stretched, the more the weight settled on him. He wasn't doing this out of guilt anymore. He wasn't even sure why he was doing it, but he couldn't stop. The girls had become his morning coffee, his reason to come home. Then one night, as he was reading a bedtime story to Chloe, his phone buzzed. "Mr. Whitmore," said the voice. "This is Detective Keller. We found Nina Alvarez. She's at Santa Clara County Hospital. Car accident. No ID. She's been in a coma for almost 3 weeks, labeled as Jane Doe." Grant's breath caught in his throat. He looked over. Emma was already asleep, one hand still holding the edge of his shirt. He tucked her in, kissed Chloe's forehead, and drove. It was 2 a.m. when Grant walked into the ICU. Nina was there. Pale, still, tubes and monitors clinging to her like ivy, but her face, it was her, even under the bruises, even after all these years. He sat beside her and whispered into the silence, "I'm sorry, I should have looked for you. I should have never let you go." She didn't move. Only the beeping of machines answered him. But as he reached out and gently touched her hand, her fingers twitched. 3 days later, Nina opened her eyes. She didn't speak at first, just blinked slowly, scanning the sterile room like someone waking from a long, painful dream. Grant sat by her side, hands clasped tight as if trying to hold the moment together. When she finally looked at him, there was no shock, no panic, just recognition and exhaustion. "How are the girls?" she whispered. "They're safe," Grant said. "They're with me." Nina nodded slowly, and tears pooled in the corners of her eyes. "Emma, Chloe," she murmured. "They need to be okay." "They are, I promise." She turned her head away, closed her eyes for a moment, then said quietly, "They're not my daughters." Grant froze. "What do you mean?" She opened her eyes again, slower this time. Each word came out like a confession. "They're my nieces. Their mom was my sister, Sarah Alvarez. She was a single mother." She paused. Her lips trembled. She was evicted from her apartment in the middle of winter. 3 days later, I found her in a broken-down storage unit behind a gas station. She was wrapped in a coat holding Emma in her arms. Chloe was crying beside her. Sarah had pneumonia. She never made it to the hospital. Grant's stomach dropped. His mouth went dry. Nina's voice cracked. "That eviction was signed by you." A silence deeper than the hospital walls settled between them. "I couldn't let them go to foster care. They were all I had left. I raised them as my own. I told them you were someone I once trusted. Someone who, if everything went wrong, might still help." She took a slow, shaky breath. "I know it was foolish. I had no idea if you'd care. I didn't even know if you remembered me." Grant said nothing, because he did remember. He remembered everything. And now, he also remembered that signature. One of 100, maybe 1,000. A signature that had ended someone's life. A signature that had made 2 little girls orphans. And he hadn't even known. Later that evening, Grant returned home. Emma was drawing on the kitchen table. Chloe was building something out of blocks on the floor. "Did you find Mommy?" Emma asked, looking up. He sat down beside her, gently. "She's awake. She's going to be okay." Both girls smiled. Chloe hugged his leg without saying a word. But then Grant took a deep breath. "There's something I have to tell you," he said. Emma looked up again. This time her smile faded slightly. He continued, voice steady but soft. "Nina isn't your real mom. Your real mother, her name was Sarah. She passed away when you were very little." Emma blinked. Chloe sat quietly, sensing something serious. "It wasn't your fault. It wasn't hers either, but it was mine." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This was the eviction notice I signed, years ago. The one that forced your mom out of her home." His voice cracked, "And I am so, so sorry." Neither girl said anything for a long moment. Then Chloe looked up. "Are you sending us away now?" Grant shook his head. "No, never. In fact, if you'll let me, I want to be your family. For real." He didn't expect an answer right away, but Emma stood, walked over, and hugged him. "I knew you were good," she whispered. Grant closed his eyes. And this time, for the first time in years, he cried. 6 months later, Grant Whitmore's house didn't look the same anymore. The marble floors that once echoed with the sound of polished shoes were now dotted with tiny socks and crayon marks. The hallways were lined with drawings, some crooked, some bright, and the silence he used to enjoy was long gone, replaced by laughter, bedtime songs, and the occasional argument over stuffed animals. The man who used to build skyscrapers was now learning how to braid hair. Nina stayed too, not as a guest, not even just as the girl's aunt, but as part of something none of them had known they were missing: a family. Emma started first grade, Chloe learned how to tie her shoes, Grant learned how to cook pancakes without burning them, on most days. He didn't wear suits every morning now. Sometimes he even forgot his phone at home, and for the first time in decades, he didn't mind. The girls never asked him why he had changed, and he never offered an answer. But one afternoon while walking Emma to school, she looked up at him and asked, "Do you ever wish you could go back in time?" He thought for a moment. Then he smiled. "No," he said, "because if I did, I might never find you." She giggled and skipped ahead. He watched her, a quiet warmth rising in his chest. Grant had once arrived to take back a home. Instead, he found one. Not because he was a good man, but because two little girls had reminded him what it meant to be one. Family isn't built on blood or contracts or last names. It's built on the moments we choose to stay, the promises we decide to keep, and the love we're brave enough to give, even when we don't think we deserve it.